Welcome everyone back to the Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle video. My name is D-Free. Here today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Gohan card. I'm going to revisit him and talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons for this character. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that subscribe if you're new for more content, as well as if the information is helpful for you, be sure to remember to hit that thumbs up and share the video out with your friends, especially if your friends are upset about Gohan for X, Y, or Z reason, right? I want to kind of talk about that specifically. So again, huge shout out to Team Dokkaner for posting this information. Without him, we would not have it, so be sure to follow him on Twitter. Link will be down below. So, okay, let me go ahead and just kind of set up the premise of the video. So, in my initial breakdown video, if you want to see that, link will be down below. I'll talk about Cell there. Here, I'm not really going to talk about Cell. In my initial video, towards the end of the video, when I got to Gohan, because I did Cell first, I was reading Gohan, and I was like, oh. And it's just like, wait, okay. Well, I realized very quickly Gohan was going to be very, very, very controversial, because it's very easy to look at his restrictions and this and that and say he's not good or he's trash or whatever, right? And I wouldn't be inclined to disagree in certain scenarios, because sometimes you just can't do certain things unless you're running this or that, and it does hamstring a little bit of what you're trying to do. Like, you're not able to run this or that unless you're doing this and that. It's just, again, having those restrictions can be, well, restrictive. So I was realizing he would be very controversial, and I want to kind of talk about Gohan's, pros and cons again. So we're going to start off by doing a breakdown of the character, and then I'll talk about why this and that is good or why this and that is a big deal. I'll also make some other comparisons to some pre-existing stuff. So the category I can't really talk much about. We need to see the actual list, but if you go ahead and take a look at the Kamehameha characters with the links, as far as the Kamehameha link is concerned, and assume that's the category in and of itself, you have access to actually some really good units, whether it's support units or higher end units like, Vegeta's, well, not Vegeta, excuse me, Vegito, the Vegito fusion card. You have Gogeta. You also have access to Goku cards and stuff like that. You have Gobros in there, I believe. You have access to some really good stuff. So I wouldn't call the category bad in particular, but the reason that people are upset about the leader skill is a lot of people were wanting and expecting hybrid Saiyans, right? It feels like they're purposely not producing another hybrid Saiyan leader, which is probably the case, especially when you factor in that Gobros could have been that too, but they're not, despite the fact that Goku is a part of their card in some fashion. So other than that, secondary leader skill is Super AGL 3-key 120, and the passive skill is 100% attack and defense at the start of the turn, plus an additional 10% attack and defense at the start of the turn alongside plus 1 key. Those two max out at 5 key additional and 70% attack and defense. This, for the record, the start of the turn boost and the secondary boost should multiply. It shouldn't be at just a regular additive 170%. That actually should peak even higher than that, maybe closer to 200%, something of that nature. If you're not familiar with the game too much, and you're just kind of reading it like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It's math, pretty much. A lot of units do similar things based on the way that they're worded, based on the way that they calculate their passives and all that stuff. They would otherwise multiply. So this could be one of those passives. Generally, if there's a semicolon, that is the case, right? So we'll see what happens ultimately as far as actual gameplay is concerned for Gohan. But either way, he's getting a minimum of 170% to both stats. And this is, again, pre-transformation we're looking at now. His two super attacks both do Colossal or Mega Colossal, which is normal, and then they both raise defense limitlessly. Traditionally, when you just have a single raise, it's going to be a 30% raise in the game, so I'd say 30% defense per super. Pretty good, right? He's going to be a unit that's going to be able to rival some of the best defensive units in the game as far as the raw defensive stat, if the event is long enough to where you can do that. For example, the Goku event. The Legendary Goku event, I wouldn't be surprised if Gohan's a unit that ultimately, again, in his best case scenarios, gets 600, 700, 800, even a million defense, potentially, right? Because, like, the way that he works is very, very similar to a unit that I can actually get to similar stats in Trunks. So this is the Tech Trunks, who, again, is a different unit, obviously, but he's a unit that has access to multiple transformations, so we can kind of see a little bit of where Gohan kind of is a similar unit. So this character raises attack and defense by 20% per super, for one. I want to point that out. He raises attack while Gohan does not raise attack. Also for Trunks, he gets 120% at the start of the turn, and also key +1 up to a maximum of 4, and an additional 10% attack and defense at the start of each turn up to a maximum of 80. This is almost the same thing as Gohan. Gohan is just worded a little bit differently based on our translation or leak, but it's 5 and 70% for Gohan. So, like, they're at least the defensive portion of it. Gohan is going to be very, very similar to Trunks. And again, it should be multiplicative. And again, Gohan's an LR. He's going to have LR stats, yada, yada. So just little things like that. Also the S at level 20, all that stuff, man. So not saying that, I mean, Trunks looks like he's a really, really good unit, because he is, right? But that is a similar type of unit to what we have with Gohan coming out here. But yeah, so like he's going to be a unit that can rival some of those top defensive units. And my point with Trunks is I can get Trunks really high up there too. You know, if the event is long enough, you get enough additional supers, you can do that. So the same should apply to Gohan. But other than the leader skill, the most controversial part, we don't really need to talk about the categories. I guess he could have been on Super Saiyan 1 technically because he is a Super Saiyan Gohan. He does transform into Super Saiyan 2, but he's not. But the most controversial part with Gohan is actually the active skill condition. So he does not transform unless you activate the active skill. In order to activate the active skill, you have to have 58% or less HP with an Android 16 on your team, or when HP is 58% or less with an existing Android's category ally or enemy starting from the 5th turn. So there's technically 3 conditions in there. It can either be not turn restricted, but you do have to be below 58% and have an Android 16 on your team, or when HP is 58% or less with an existing Android category ally on your team or an Android category enemy starting from the 5th turn of the battle. So those are the 3 conditions for Gohan's transformation. So we mentioned a while ago, and I mentioned this in my previous video, that they started adding in the requirement for units to have, whether it was Nail, whether it was Chi-Chi, they started adding in the requirements for units getting access to this or that part of their passive or conditions based on having specific allies. And that's not where it ends for Gohan. His transformation has another one too. But just for the record, do expect that in the future. This is just a thing now. This is where they're going, and they're going to do this more. And you can kind of see this 2 sides of the coin where people will say it's restrictive, and I would agree, because you're forced to run something or do something specific to be able to get something, right? Or also people can say that it's enjoyable, right? But regardless, though, we'll see what happens with that ultimately. But again, Gohan does not transform unless you get either of those. But I just, for the record, want to point out, Gohan is phenomenal not transformed. Like, I have painted the picture. This unit is going to be a complete monster pre-transformation. But I do 100% understand and sympathize with the idea that, yeah, that's lame because you should be able to transform. You should not be in a position where, and Trunks has this same situation actually, where versus the Goku event, I never touch this Trunks. He's good. He's very good. But versus the Goku event specifically, I'm not going to transform. And you should never be in a position with a card where you are not going to go ahead and bring out their full form, their max potential, or whatever the case is. But Gohan finds himself in a similar position due to how restricted he is. For the record, there's going to be a new Android 16 on the banner. So Android 16 is going to literally have to be a Super AGL unit in order for Gohan to function with Android 16 on the team. Now, other than that, for the Android 16 part, being below 58% is highly subjective. Reason why is because it depends on 2 things. It depends on what content you're taking on, and it also depends on how much of a whale you are, pretty much. How much you've invested into your account, or whether it's free or you're getting lucky, how lucky you've been. That's what it depends on. And the reason why I say that is because, for me personally, I struggle to get below 58%. Even versus harder content. There's some content, obviously, like the Goku event, for example, again, that can get me there eventually, right? But for traditional events, and even sometimes Super Battle Road, it just doesn't really happen too much. It just depends on what you have, what you don't have, how many dupes you have, all of that stuff. So again, it's subjective. It depends. But regardless, though, again, I want to point out that Gohan is never going to be on a team with Android 16, except for, here's the funny part, except for on the Android Cell Saga. So the Cell Saga category will have both of these units on the team. Wouldn't you know it, that the Cell Saga category is led by none other than Cell. So pretty much, in order to bring out Gohan's full potential, you're going to want him on the Android/Cell Saga team, ideally with an Android 16 unit, right? That's pretty much it, because, again, he has no existing categories with Android 16 units. It's just not a thing. The Android 16 units previously in the game are either Android/Cell Saga, Artificial Life Form, and Androids. Again, you have to run the Android Cell Saga pretty much in order to do that. But who knows what happens with the next AGL one, right? So that's pretty much it as far as the restriction is concerned. Like, that's not good. I will say the other part of it, when you're in a position where you run an Android category ally, there are cells, for example, that have the Kamehameha link, which is why they did this, right? Because they're not going to force you to run Android 16. This is the secondary part. If you don't want to run 16, you can either run 16 or not. And if you don't, you have to get 5 turns and below 58% versus an Android category enemy or with an Android unit on your team. You have to do one of those 2 things, right? Well, 3 things technically, but regardless, you have to do one of those things. in order to do it. And again, there are some units in the Kamehameha unit group or Super AGL. I'm assuming that the Android is going to be, if the Android 16 is not Super AGL, that is probably the biggest indictment on this character, because even then you can't really do much, right? You're forced in this different position, and it's not great. And I imagine that 16's got to be a support unit too, so he doesn't have to be an on-rotation unit. It's just weird things like that with needing a condition, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at Gohan's transform state. So this is where Gohan gets even more controversial. So 20% attack and 7% defense per key sphere obtained, plus an additional 1 key per key sphere obtained. That is literally the old Gohan, but better. He's getting the bonus key, he's getting the attack, it's 2% better here, and he actually picks up defense unlike the old Gohan. LR Gohan, to be more specific. Randomly changes key spheres of a certain type to rainbow key spheres when facing only one enemy. That's very easy to do, even versus some of the hardest events like Battlefield, EZAs, the Goku event. The only time it's really not is versus World Tournament, Super Battle Road, in a lot of cases, not always, but in a lot of cases. And then even then versus like World Tournament, Super Battle Road, you can technically dwindle down the enemies, right? And if you are at a position where you started with 3 enemies, now you have 1, you will get that condition. And other than that, same applies to Dokkan events. Sometimes you're facing multiple enemies, but regardless, for the most part, you're going to be able to get that. Also launches an additional super attack when facing multiple enemies. So if you're in a position where, this is how you understand this part. If you're in a position where you're facing multiple enemies, you're not going to get the middle part of the passive to generate his own key, right? So that's unfortunate, because at that point he still kind of wants either you to have planned the orbs out in advance, a turn in advance or something like that, or an orb changer unit or something like that. So that is unfortunate that it's kind of making you choose between the two. But if you are forced to choose and you have to deal with the additional supers, with the additional supers, he is going to hit. He's going to hit really hard just in general. All of his hits are going to be very, very hard. So ideally, you can actually defeat some enemies and then get to a point where you can produce your own orbs or whatever the case is. And if you can't, you still would do additional supers. So it's kind of like a pick your poison type of deal. Again, you don't really have the luxury of literally choosing outright as far as like early in the fight or whatever. But regardless, though, you can kind of see what happens. It's highly situational. That's the problem with the Gohan, is a lot of what he's doing is highly situational. Whereas Cell just says, here you go, do whatever you want, right? Now, Cell does have a condition of getting a certain number of orbs, but still, that's kind of where a lot of people are having issues. And then for the last part here, plus an additional 59% in attack when performing an Ultra Super, and your team has Super Saiyan Goku attacking in the same turn. So, all right, so this, for one, attacking in the same turn, I'm guessing that just means on rotation, because they could really be, and they could really do this. I'm not joking. I don't think this is what they're going to do. They could really say attacking in the same turn, but mean Goku needed to have already attacked, right? That's a thing, right? I'm not going to discount that, but I think they just mean on rotation, because he's going to attack regardless, right? If he's getting orbs, you have no choice. But yeah, for this is interesting, because additional 59%. This is going to be, again, a multiplying boost. It's not going to be an additive boost. It's a multiplying boost. So this character, if you can get this part of the passive, right? The Ultra Super part of the passive doesn't care about the second and third parts. You don't need to be facing only one enemy or multiple enemies. Regardless of what you do, he's getting 59% bonus. So if you are in a position where you got a good number of orbs, you're getting the 59% bonus, and you're even launching multiple supers, and when you launch the 18 key super, you're going to, again, get the 59% bonus, but you're also getting a great attack raise as well for the super attack. And it's doing Mega Colossal with SA20. So, like, this unit, ideally, in the best case scenario, is probably the hardest hitting unit in the game. For that one shot, he probably is, right? If not, he's definitely among them. So that's the point here. But again, it's still a little too much. And then we have we have multiple restrictions, but really another unit-based one where they say Super Saiyan Goku. I just want to point out, these are all of the current Super Saiyan Gokus in the game. The unit wouldn't need to be in Super Saiyan 1 at the time, right? So and the reason I mention that is because we do have a unit like this, who is Super Saiyan Goku to Super Saiyan 2 Goku. Super Saiyan 2 Goku, if you transformed, it would not trigger that. You would need Super Saiyan 1 Goku, which I can't imagine when and how you'd get this Goku on the same rotation as the Gohan transformed, all of that, like the Gohan transformed, and I don't see that happening. Below 58%, 60, I don't see that happening. But who knows, right? I'm guessing it's one of those things that could happen. But the ideal unit to run there would be the upcoming Goku and Gohan card. The reason why that card should work is because there actually is a thing between Nail and Chi-Chi I mentioned in the initial video, and you may think it's not a big deal or whatever the case is, but it really is. So the Nail card specifically says, give me a Piccolo. Now, that's important because if there's a Piccolo fused with Kami or something like that, like had they named the card Piccolo fused with Kami, and this is part of the reason why they didn't, had they done so, the recent release Piccolo, he would not trigger Nail's passive because he's not a Piccolo. He's Piccolo fused with Kami. That's important because it says literally, quote unquote, Piccolo. The Chi-Chi card that recently got an awakening says, get this bonus if there is a Goku youth unit on your team. Now, the wording of that, the kanji of that, Goresh explained this very, very well. So again, it sounds like they'd be the same thing, but they're not. Pretty much, she says, if you give me a Goku youth, which could be Goku youth regular, Goku youth ape, Goku youth and Bulma youth, whatever, they would all trigger that part of her passive for her. Any Goku youth card, not just Goku youth specifically. And that would mean, if they specified Goku Youth, it would mean literally just like the Dokkan Fest leader, for example, and a couple other variants. But you wouldn't be able to use the 8 versions or whoever else. Goku Youth and Arale wouldn't count. Like, that type of stuff would not count, but it does. So it's a different thing. And I assume that this Gohan is functioning more like Chi-Chi as opposed to Nail. And that Goku/Gohan card, what just so happens to be getting an Easy A. It will be getting an Easy A. That was confirmed by Kawhi. We don't know what it does, but it will be getting one. That card also is a support unit. So again, if it's there, the only caveat to that is you 100% cannot retreat/exchange into just Gohan before you do the Gohan Super Saiyan 2 stuff. Like, if you do that, the card switches to Gohan and it wouldn't count. But if you leave it as is, as its base, just Goku and Gohan, then you're fine. So, but regardless, still highly restricting. And even if you run the transforming Super Saiyan Goku, the Super Saiyan category leader, again, this unit would have had to have already transformed, right? Now, to be fair, this guy can transform on the same timeline as Gohan can, pretty much. You know, 3 turns for this guy here. You need to be below 70%, so I guess you can dip that a little further. Like, this is a lot easier to do than the other Goku was, the AGL one. But still, again, restricted. But regardless, though, I want to point out, like I did earlier, even if you can't get this transformation, the card is nutty. Like, he is nutty. But again, it just sucks that you have to do all of this and jump through all of these hoops and stuff like that. So hopefully this video kind of served as an explainer for this character and kind of is going to help some of you guys understand why the character is good in different spots, whether you can transform or not, and then also why a lot of people are frustrated. Because just like there's a lot of people frustrated, there's also equally people that don't understand why people are frustrated. And this is also another reason as to why, because you have to do all these things to do what you want to do. And then even then, when you're transformed, you can't get everything at once. You have to do this, you have to do that. So there's a lot, ultimately. Personally, though, again, I'm still going hard for Gohan. He is my favorite character pretty much in the series. So I'm going to go hard for him. But regardless, though, I understand both sides of the coin. And when it comes to me, on a lot of cases, I probably just won't even bother transforming. But anyways, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hit that subscribe, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next one. And once again, huge shout out to Team Dokkaner here for the information. And I'll see you guys later.